In the last episode of this business structure series, we had a look at the micro-sized business, what a typical structure could actually look like, what are the functions that would actually be typically used inside a business of that size, as well as what the challenges are that lie ahead for that size business. And in this episode, we're going to have a look at how to overcome these challenges by restructuring a certain number of things, but also like very subtle changes, but they could really make a critical difference, as well as what else to focus on so that you can overcome those challenges and grow your business to the next level after that. All that and a whole bunch more coming right up. Let's get on with it. Hit it. Right, so as we mentioned in the last episode, time is a critical challenge for a small business owner who's now moving from a solopreneur-sized business to a micro-sized business where they begin to outsource some things, key essential functions in the business, such as marketing, or even bringing in an in-house, an employee, whether it's part-time or full-time, it doesn't matter. You're beginning to build a team. Now, time is still critical. You have still got a cash flow issue because it's still a very small business, and what's coming in seems to be going out, and you're trying to struggle in terms of how much to pay yourself, how much to actually pay your team, how much of that budget should be reinvested back in the business, as well as being able to find more clients, because now you've proven that the business model works and you're beginning to start growing the business. Right, so what are the things that we really need to focus on as part of growing a micro-sized business? First of all, really make sure that your strategy is solid. Refine, revisit your strategy, and start including some of your key members in the team that you've built so that they can begin to understand what your strategy is, so that they can align and they can also communicate it as well as you. And the communication becomes a lot simpler when they are part of the strategic development, as well as also having a buy-in into that so that they can be really aligned in with what you're doing. Being able to really focus on your strategy and say, right now, this thing seems to work. My business model has been validated as a solopreneur. And what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and scale that. Make sure that your strategy includes how you're going to scale it, the economies of scale. Is it going to still make financial sense as you bring in more people, or as you bring in less people and you're still relying on yourself? There are a lot of things where you're beginning to say, right, actually, if I scale this, I still don't have enough time. I just hit a ceiling and I can't take on more than X number of customers or clients. So making sure that your strategy is now scalable and being able to communicate that strategy to your team and to any key players in the team so that they can understand it is a key part of the process. The second thing that you need to be focusing on is making sure that you're still bringing in clients so that you can have cash flow and you can maintain that and you can still pay your team. So client acquisition becomes a big focus of a micro-sized business. And that's typically why a lot of times, one of the first things that gets hired out, one of the first essential functions that gets hired out is marketing, so that you can actually still create awareness and actually start having a wider exposure to your particular target market or segment that you're targeting, I guess. So having a marketing person is really a crucial thing so that you can still make sure that you can actually scale and bring in the business and bring in the clientele, bring in the customer base, whatever type of business it is. Making sure that client acquisition, looking at your strategy is very important. Those are the first two things. Before we get on to the next couple of points, you're going to say to me, well, Tamer, this is a sort of business structure series. I want to know how to sort of change my business structure so that it can be effective and efficient. And this is where I think a few subtle differences and a few subtle changes will really make a huge difference inside your business. One of the fundamental things that you need to be doing inside a micro business is being able to hand over authority and delegate authority to different people, as well as making sure that you hand over ownership so that they can be responsible for what they're experts in. So if it's a marketing person, you want them to come up with their own marketing strategy that aligns to your business strategy. If they're a product development person, then you want them to come up with a product strategy, or you work on it together so that they can actually deliver on what you're doing inside your products or services. One of the key ingredients that's missing at this point here is having the right systems and processes in place. You might have an admin person, a VA, who has come at this point as you were a solopreneur, and they are still very much used to you delegating tasks to them. Do this and do this, fix my calendar, do this, go through my email list. And then all of a sudden, you need to start building a team. and you start relying on that person to start liaising with your team, and they may not be qualified enough. And what you probably need to have at this stage is someone who can actually become your integrator, as I talk about it in this video here when I refer to the book Rocket Fuel. Now, an integrator is somebody who can have different names. Either it's an operations person or an online business manager, but someone a little bit more senior who understands how to actually start managing people so they become managers rather than admin, just pure admin. So what they would need to do is start looking at what are the key systems and processes in place inside your business that will make a big difference, and make sure that they are in place so that when you bring in people into the other sort of areas of the business, they already have the right systems and processes for them, as well as the SOPs in line for them. Probably before you bring in that person, a marketing person is one of your fundamental people that you need to bring in, because marketing is part of what we wanted to do. Client acquisition, remember. So we need to make sure that we're bringing in the cash flow. So bringing in someone at this stage who is a VA potentially, and then you're outsourcing that. It might have worked as a solopreneur, but as you're beginning to start scaling your business from a micro business to a small size business, you need to be handing over authority and ownership. And in that case, hold on a little bit before sort of paying and hiring out a basic, inexperienced marketing person, whether they're a marketing VA. Actually sit there and say, I need to start investing, even if it's on a part-time basis, in someone a little bit more senior who can actually help me come up with a overall marketing strategy that aligns with my business strategy. And that person will probably be able to actually put aside the right SOPs as well before you hire out the integrator. But the key here is now we need to have the right systems and processes in place before we start hiring the right people. So either hire people that are slightly more senior who can actually help come up with the strategy, take ownership of certain areas in your business, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, whether it's product development, whether it's customer service. You need to be able to start saying, right, I need to make sure that these people that I'm bringing in are star players. They are the ones that will be able to take what I want and run with it so that I can focus on my role as the CEO of my own business and actually start making sure that the strategy is sound, I'm building the right team, and I'm starting to put in the right work culture between the teams. It's a minor shift, but what you're trying to do is making sure that you've got people in place that are actually potentially later on, they could bring in VAs for them or assistants for them or less experienced people under the marketing banner. So a marketing manager could actually then outsource out to a content marketing person or a social media manager so that they are owning the marketing strategy. And you remember, you would have either assign them to do the marketing strategy and you would have communicated the business strategy to them, or you're working on this together, or you've come up with your own draft initially, and then you bring them in and say, hey, what do you think? Feel free to change it. Let's sit down and discuss and be able to come up with something that they can then be comfortable with, and they understand what your strategy is, and then they have the authority to make decisions based on what you're giving them. Of course, as you're delegating, there is a process. You don't sit there and just bring someone in and say, hey, go ahead, it's all yours. See you next year, I'm off. It doesn't work like that. There is a sort of a handover phase where you're essentially saying, hey, look, this is how I do it. Watch me do it. Let me watch you do it. And then, okay, everything is great. Maybe in the middle we do it together. And then you basically say, right, okay, now I trust the SOPs are there, the processes are there, it's repeatable, it's consistent, the marketing strategy aligns with your business strategy, your product strategy aligns with your business strategy, we've got the right stuff, okay, fantastic, go and get me clients or customers so that we can actually maintain growing the business and bringing in enough cash flow inside the business. Having someone like an integrator then can take away a lot of the tedious sort of tasks inside the business and run that business for you. And they will be able to also let you know whether things are feasible, viable, or is it scalable? Is it not scalable? The timelines, because a lot of times we as entrepreneurs are quite usually visionaries where we start saying, right, actually, I want to be able to do this tomorrow, actually, yesterday. Yeah, we've all been there where we say like, I want to do this and 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 this in the next 15 minutes. And then the integrator will say that will take 2 years. And you say, no. And then it becomes a struggle and you compromise and make sure that they keep you in check to make sure that things are happening inside the business, where then you delegate authority so that they could chase down the other members in your team so that they can then make sure that things are being done. At the same time, what you need to start doing as well is making sure that you start having key metrics inside your business, that you really understand how to monitor those key metrics and make sure that those targets that you're setting for different people is working. Speaking of working, we need to start talking about the working culture. One of your responsibilities as the CEO of your business is then making sure that everyone, all of these sort of team members that are coming in, have a fantastic working environment that they are really happy in, but communication is transparent. The sort of the way that people communicate with each other inside the business, if they're remote or if they're in an office, it doesn't matter. You're looking at making sure that all of that sort of process is very easy to do, and it's very open and it's transparent. And depending on whether you want to create a culture of collaboration or a culture of competition, I prefer collaboration, but there are some businesses that say, hey, let's make people competitive in the sales department, for example, and make sure that they are competing against each other as long as it's in the right spirit. I personally prefer the collaboration side and making sure that everyone's happy, excited, motivated, understanding your mission, understanding your vision. So your communication to your team becomes really, really crucial at this stage. So there's a link below where we actually have a guide where you can look at organizational charts and org charts and all of that good stuff as you begin to scale your company and what they could typically look like depending on the type of business that you're running. But I think the key thing here is to begin to understand what are the main essential functions you need to start hiring out first. One of those is actually your finance function. Now, you might have already outsourced out an accountant to file your end of year sort of company financial statements. But what you probably need now, more so than before, as part of your micro-sized business, is making sure that you have a bookkeeper to be able to give you very, very regular accounts and financial statements in terms of your expenses, what's coming in, what's going out, so that you can make sure that you've got the right finances up to date, as well as making sure that you have stuck to the budget that you have come up with. You've come up with a budget, haven't you? Haven't you? Come up with a budget. Come up with a budget and make sure that you stick to it. But you need to make sure that those decisions are made based on real financial up-to-date data so that you don't run out of cash. A lot of businesses, a vast majority of businesses run out of cash, and that's why they fail. As we were speaking earlier in terms of having the right key metrics in your business, some of these key metrics should be financial based in terms of making sure that you are monitoring certain things on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis, where you're saying, right, these are the metrics I need to make sure we're getting the right targets, we've got sufficient cash, certain financial ratios are in the right place. That's a topic for another video. But what I want to make sure is that you begin to start understanding. And if you are hiring out a bookkeeper or an accountant, make sure that you interview those bookkeepers and accountants and make sure that you can actually have some time with them so that they can explain certain aspects for you. Because if you hire out the right people, chances are they'll end up saving you a lot of money. So it's worth the investment if you hire the right people, where they can actually give you a little bit of guidance on how to be very efficient in terms of taxes, or very efficient in terms of how you look at your expenses and how much you start investing, so on and so forth. As the business grows, you're going to bring in your own internal financial function, but at this stage, it probably makes more sense to have just an outsourced bookkeeper as well as an accounting firm. One of the things that I usually find a lot of micro business owners falling into a trap of is trying to get the lowest cost VAs or assistants to do some of the work for them. And what you should be doing is making sure that the team that you're bringing in are going to add value to your business, not the other way around. Yes, training is still important. Don't get me wrong. You're going to still need to invest in training as time goes on. But what you should be doing right now is bringing in people that are going to add value to your business. And that means that you should wait a little bit and invest in slightly more experienced people so that they can later on bring in VAs for them that they can task out and they can train and they can do all of these kind of things. But at this stage, resist the temptation of just hiring out the cheapest, lowest quality person because that's what you can afford to pay. It is a struggle and it is a balance. And that's why a lot of times startups will go and raise funding so that they can actually bring in amazing people to help them grow the company. And usually that helps a lot. So what you should be doing if you're not getting external funding is just holding out a little bit and making sure that you're putting the right systems and processes in place and bringing in key people like a marketing person who can then start giving you extra money and bringing in the right cash. Now, if you bring in the right sort of experienced marketing person who can actually bring a lot more value to your business and increase your sort of revenue, then that will allow you to hire even more experienced people. And that person will have paid for themselves multiple times over. So one of the things that I just want you to know is it's not just about what essential functions you need to bring in. It's which ones that you need to start bringing in first so that they can add value to your business, so that then you can actually bring in other people to take away a lot of the stuff that you're focusing on. You should be focusing on now beginning to understand how to really communicate your strategy, build a team culture and the spirit and the working culture inside your business, making sure that everyone's got the right systems and processes, making sure that everyone is aligned in executing your strategy. And also you make sure that you've got enough cash in the bank as well. And those are some of the key fundamental things that you should be doing as part of you being the CEO of your business. I hope that all makes sense for you. In the next video, we're going to start looking at the small size business, one up a little bit from the micro business. And as we begin to look at the business structure, it's going to start getting a little bit more complicated because obviously you're going to start bringing in more people as well as potential managers and leadership teams that will have people underneath them. All that in the next video. If you haven't yet liked and subscribed, I would consider you doing so. I really appreciate it. It makes a lot of difference to the algorithm for YouTube, and it shows it to a lot more people who hopefully will find this valuable, as well as it makes me make more videos like this. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next video.